Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Was Hybrid Devil Prince. If you guys enjoy this what if, and want to see part 4 of it, comment down below, and let me know. The like goal for this video is 200 likes. So like this video, to let me know that you're interested in this series, and you want the next part. And go ahead, and check out other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Tsubaki twisted around, her eyes locking onto deep blue orbs. Naruto. Ah, yep, that's me. Or I'm him, or we are each other. It really depends on who you're talking to, or about. He scratched his head as if he was puzzled about it himself. She blinked. What gibberish are you speaking? And more importantly, why have you done this to me? Her voice wasn't panicked or even unstable. It was just matter of fact. Naruto seemed amused by something in her questions because he smirked. Oh, that. It's actually the ancient traditional way of speaking for devils. To always answer questions in sets of 2 or 3. The first is a direct answer to an inquiry, while the second is either a direct contradiction of the first, or the same answer phrased differently. The third is generally added to increase confusion, and completely throw the first and second answers into doubt. Naruto grinned and stalked around her, so that she wasn't turning to look at him. His grin was predatory. It reminded her nothing so much as the one time she'd seen Seraphul's childlike mask slip completely. That had been shortly after she first joined the peerage. Suffice to say there was a mountain range, or 2, missing after that. And now, to see Naruto bearing a death grin that Asmodeus himself would have wept in pride for, well, she couldn't be blamed that her control slipped. Tsubaki cringed back from him, looking away hurriedly. Please don't kill me. I don't believe I've done anything to offend you. And you haven't, just to be clear. I feel a bit guilty for tying you up like this, but I needed to talk to you eventually anyway. For several reasons actually. It's just happening a lot sooner than I anticipated. So, I'm tied up because. He raised his eyebrow. You're tied up because it's easy for a devil to fake that reasonable and constantly bland expression. And besides, few devils I've ever known are as severe as you are usually. I figured that you were hiding your real personality from everyone but your peerage. I couldn't be sure that you were as reasonable as you seemed. He shrugged. And besides, the rest of Sona's peerage isn't any help in figuring it out. You're rather paranoid. I know, right? He chuckled darkly. You'll have to forgive me, but regardless of how you see yourselves, everyone, regardless of who they are, see things through tinted glasses. Some only wear lightly shaded ones, while others walk around with the insides painted black. I had an interesting upbringing. Half of the people who I saw told me that your peerage and the new devils were nothing but traitorous scum who needed to be taught their place. She frowned as he continued. The others said that their counterparts were fools, and too stuck in their ways to see what was in front of them. And as much as I disliked the former and loved the later, I still had to find out for myself just who was right. I refused to be led blindly by anyone regardless of their intentions to protect me, harm me, or otherwise. Naruto looked down at her and said bluntly, I've let myself be used by others for too long to take a chance on you manipulating me in some way. I take it you were raised by one of the ancient devil families. Not everyone uses the term new devil as a bad thing. Tsubaki felt less threatened now, and found herself respecting him for his reasoning and his firm grasp on the truth of life. Everyone was biased, and it was a good sign that he wasn't quick to accept the views of others, even if they seemed more wholesome. At a question though, Naruto burst out laughing. You can say that again. Now I'm going to be honest with you. When I first came here, it was to lay low after running away from home in a sense. And my first thought when I saw the peerages here was to seduce certain members to my side and cause mischief. However, certain events led me to decide that wasn't for the best. And with or without you knowing it, I'm already working to take care of one mess Ria's peerage is neck deep in. The fallen. I guess you and Ria's peerage do communicate. I figured as much, when both of your teams were gone on the same day. He seemed to think to himself for a moment. Oh, how's this say by the way? I stopped one attempt on his life, but there were actually 4 fallen in the area, so I suppose he was attacked, seeing how he was gone on the same day. Tsubaki nodded. You're right. He was killed actually, but Ria's was there in time to resurrect him without any ill side effects. Ah, that's good. I don't want any attention drawn to this town while I'm here. I'd like to stay off the leash as long as I can. Leash? Yeah. Naruto pointed to her, and then to himself, while making his speech rough and brutish. You, friend of new devil heir. Me, heir of old devil family. He chuckled, allowing his voice to return to normal. I want to make friends here, but I also don't want you guys to report my location first thing you know. May I ask the real reason? Only if you give me something in return, and do be honest. I can sense, if you outright lie to me. She shrugged her shoulders slightly. Ask away. I'm in no position to stop you. Okay? Will Sona report me to her sister even if she determines that I'm not a threat to her or this town? A slight chuckle of her own escaped Tsubaki. Well, Naruto-san. I can safely say that regardless of if she trusts you or not, Sama is the last person she reports you to. She is deathly afraid of her older sister because of the mess she makes of everything in which she involves herself. Sama is legendary for her eccentricities, shall we say. If she were to report you, which I believe is dependent on your specific circumstances, then it would be to Ajuka Beelzebub or Syzych's Lucifer. You still didn't answer my question, Tsubaki-chan, although that was an expert attempt to evade. Anyone who didn't have to deal with my godfather would have been put off by that. He crouched down in front of her. What I'm really asking is if Sona is willing to do me a favor and keep quiet to her superiors about me for a while. In reality, it will actually be better for her if I stay hidden, since there will be some unsavory people looking for me. Well? She dropped her head. My king is bound by her word. I believe she would report you, because it is part of her duty to do so. Well, that presents some problems for me. I might just have to. He trailed off and went silent, his face registering shock for a brief moment. Then his eyes snapped to hers. Your king is in danger. If you want to reach her in time, you'll have to take my help for now. Maybe I can get a promise out of her for helping then. What? What's going on? How can you tell? No time for that. He snapped his fingers and she felt the bonds holding her lose their magical enhancement. She quickly stood, snapping her restraints. Thank you, but how do? Naruto grabbed her arm. This will feel weird. Huh? Tsubaki felt a violent twisting sensation in her stomach and space bent around her. What is this? How's he planning on taking us to Sona? Sona stood isolated. She didn't know what was happening. One moment the shy second-year transfer student with the odd pale eyes had approached her, asking for help, and the next she was being attacked. But that wasn't what surprised her. There had been attempts on her life before. And kidnappings too. What shocked her was the skill and ease with which she was being defeated. And the worst part was that her opponent seemed almost sympathetic, wincing even as she landed another jab in Sona's solar plexus. I'm sorry, but these are my orders, Devil-san. I do not wish to cause harm, but it is required of me. Sona gritted her teeth and stood shakily, looking across at her opponent. She was the same age, it seemed, with long dark blue hair framed in a hime cut. She had the palest porcelain skin she'd ever seen, and graceful features and movements that made her seem borderline angelic. If it wasn't for her hair color, she would have immediately thought she was an angel, but every angel she'd heard about had blonde hair. It doesn't matter, thought. She is using holy energy, and the way she keeps hitting me, I don't know how, but I can't use my magic like I normally would. It's as if she's disabling my ability to summon magic each time she strikes. Her gaze turned beyond the older sister, to the younger. She had no hope of defeating these girls unless Ria's peerage came. They were too fast and too contained. None of their movements caused any collateral damage, and they were so precise. The younger sister was twice or three times as deadly as the elder, or at least she was far more fierce. Seeing how she was single-handedly taking on the rest of her peerage and winning. In fact, only Momo and Saji were standing. Tomo and Rya were unconscious, having been felled quickly and efficiently the moment they appeared on the scene. Sona prayed they hadn't been severely injured. That thought nearly killed her, 2 fingers shooting over her head as she ducked. Sona grimaced and somersaulted back. The girl followed, her fighting style like water, dangerous and tricky to avoid. She'd already found out that she had to keep out of melee range at all costs. It just wasn't quite as simple as that. Sona dodged another lightning-fast jab, and flared her wings out wide. She jumped in the air, giving a quick flap, and summoning her magic circle. Her gaze locked on the pale pupilless orbs, and the bulging veins around them. Time to end this, if I can. Without a word, water shot forth from her magic circle, spearing downward like a sharpened tentacle. Only for the girl to use the palm of her hand to deflect it. How? A jagged pain shot through her shoulder, and she glanced back to see the grim cast of the younger girl's face, as her fingers jabbed right into her pressure point. Sona's wings failed and she fell. As she did so, she saw Saji was sprawled on the ground lying over top of Momo. He was trying to push him up while coughing up blood. No. This isn't happening. This can't happen. Where did this come from? They were just normal students before. I know they were a bit strange as far as their attitudes and appearances, but I couldn't sense anything wrong with them. Sona craned her neck even as the two converged on her. Hinata. A shout came from her left, causing the older girl to stop dead, almost like she'd run into an invisible brick wall. The younger sister had no such compunctions, only shooting a displeased look her way as she plummeted towards her target. Then a flash of yellow light filled her vision, and all of her pain from the dozen jabs vanished. Sona had closed her eyes briefly, expecting the next attack to connect with a vital spot. Her eyes opened, and she found herself held in strong arms, bridal style. She also found herself looking into the blue eyes of one Naruto Uzumaki. You should really be more careful next time. He smirked and put her down on her feet before he turned his attention to the two sisters. Both of whom stood together watching them, about 20 feet away. Seconds later, Sona felt a hand on her shoulder and turned in time to see a concerned Tsubaki, who looked quite ill. Good to see we made it in time, my king. Tsubaki, what happened? How? I'll explain later. For now let Naruto-san take care of this. I believe he is capable. Sona looked back to Naruto, but the blonde was staring across at the sisters. But it wasn't he who spoke first. The elder sister looked down as if greatly ashamed of herself. At the same moment the younger shouted at Naruto. What in God's name are you doing here, Naruto? You're supposed to be at your faction's headquarters right now. We weren't told you were allowed outside. That earned a glare from him. Newsflash, Shinobi-chan. I'm quite finished pandering to the whims of those old fools. Even if I agreed with their views I would still have left. I'm not some weapon or test subject. You should know exactly how I feel. We're nothing like you half-breed scum. Naruto tilted his head. What's wrong with you, Hanabi? I expected you to be surprised or even shocked, but why would you be angry at me? I thought you two liked me. Wasn't I the one who helped you two out when my uncle's goons were about to beat you to a pulp? And what's with this anyway? Why the hell are you two attacking devils in their own territory? They aren't breaking any rules and I refuse to believe that your father is this stupid. You shut up about my father. Sona pushed forward, tired of not knowing what was happening. Naruto-san, what is going on here? He glanced out of the corner of his eyes saying, these two are Hinata and Hanabi Hyuga, two angels I know from when I was younger. They're part of a special, village of sorts. It's complicated and I can't tell you all about it here, but suffice to say it's one of the few places where angels can have a family without falling. Naruto gestured to them. The Hyuga clan is comprised of about 50 angels who share genetic abilities and skills. Those eyes are the mark of their clan. Sona's jaw dropped. Angels. Hanabi glared at them menacingly. Yeah, we're angels. What's the big deal? I think what Sona-chan here is trying to get at is, why are two angels attacking neutral devils when there isn't a war going on? He frowned. And I'm especially curious, since we both know that the angels never send teens out to fight. Unlike the devils in Fallen, angels only allow mature fighters in their standing army. Why are you here? You were 13, 14. She didn't answer. However, beside her Hinata looked increasingly agitated, her cheeks a bright shade of pink. Hanabi turned to her, about to say something and saw her flushed face. Oh, not this. Hinata's fingers were pressing together as she turned away from her little sister. Sorry, I can't help it. She sent a strange pleading look Naruto's way as she mumbled, you know how I feel about him. That earned an enraged snarl from Hanabi who turned on Naruto. This is all your fault. It's your fault that she's like this. That she's so weak. Father is going to be forced to brand her with the seal if she doesn't prove herself this time, and so you just have to show up and blow all her chances of being free. Hinata's eyes flicked to her sister for a moment before turning to Naruto. Sorry Naruto-kun. Across from them Naruto stiffened. His eyes narrowed as he worked through the situation in his head. Hinata's father has obviously gotten involved with the wrong people. Since they can't fall like regular angels they can basically be manipulated by outside forces, and it could go pretty much unnoticed at first. Damn it, what do I do? I can't kill them. If I do that, judging by the state of Sona's peerage, their boss will know someone unexpected is here helping. It would be just my luck that they're mixed up with the Chaos Brigade and then bang, I'll be found out quick as that. He looked them up and down, thinking about the odds. There's a chance I can get them on my side. They did almost hang off me when they visited that one time with Dad. I think Hinata has always had a crush on me, especially with what I can smell right now, and yet it would be the same thing if they stay willingly. Their superiors will assume that they were killed and come to the same conclusion. The problem is that as much as I want to, I can't let them go free. If I do then they will tell about my presence here and that is even worse. Damn, what do I do? I want to help Hinata, but Hanabi looks set against me for some reason. I have an idea, it's not a nice one, but it will have to do, sorry Hanabi. Sona twitched as Naruto seemed to snap out of his thoughts. Hey Sona-chan. I'll explain everything later. For right now just stay out of my way. This'll be quick. He closed his eyes briefly, and then they snapped open, their blue gone to show deep churning purple. Sorry about this Hinata-chan. What? Before anyone could react, Naruto was gone in a flash of speed, crossing the 20 feet between them before either sister could register the tensing of his muscles. His strike, aimed for Hanabi's torso, stuck through. The power behind it launching her backwards, and into a tree hard enough to crack it. She coughed up blood and looked down in shock, where her uniform had been torn away leaving a hole in the fabric. A huge bruise was already forming on her pale skin. The pain of what was likely have a dozen cracked ribs shot through her, making her vision go unfocused. She was too dazed even to move for several seconds. Then she heard the gasp and a short exclamation, followed by a long drawn-out moan. It sent a shiver of dread down her spine. Her head turned slowly, the pain forgotten as she saw Naruto's true objective. Her eyes focused on her older sister, who was loosely clutched in Naruto's arms. Her knees were bent and her arms were limp at her sides. Naruto's, his face was buried in the hollow of her slender neck, and he was, gorging himself. Hanabi went pale. Hinata's complete submission to his act shocked her almost as much as the act itself. Could he even drink from a pure angel? Was it even possible for him to have holy energy inside him? And why was she just let him? A soft sigh followed by a rustle of clothing heralded the end to Naruto's meal as he let Hinata fall to the ground. She was out cold before she hit the grass. Naruto on the other hand looked like an African native who'd never tasted sugar. After a dozen Milky Way bars and 2 Coca-Cola classics, the blood that graced his chin was wiped away by a finger, which he then licked provocatively. Even from here she could feel his power spike. And then he was walking towards her. She hurriedly tried to move, only to realize her nerves were traumatized. She couldn't move. And as she looked up again, Naruto was right there, his eyes glowing in the most unpleasant expression on his face. The combination between lust and hunger. Hanabi sucked in her breath and closed her eyes, ready for the feeling of fangs in her throat. No, I'm not planning on biting you, if that's what you're thinking. Her eyes opened inches away from hers. Why? She asked brokenly. You bit sis. She wanted me too and she did taste amazing. I'm not sure I could stop myself if I'd actually been in the mood right then. I've never had angel blood before, not the pure kind anyway. Hanabi paled further. What are you going to do to me? Her anger was gone, replaced by fear for herself and fear for her sister. Well, it's not what I'm going to do. It's what I might do. You see, I don't want to be found here by my family, or anyone associated with them, or even anyone who might lead to me being found out. However, you two present me with a problem. If I kill you, then suspicion will fall on this town's devils, and on me seeing how none of them are actually strong enough to defeat you. If I let you live, then you'll tell on me. If I let you stay, same thing. He cocked his head to the side. However, if you return home and tell your family that Hinata was killed because she slipped up against an unexpected move on Sona's part, then my presence is less of an issue. They might believe that she was taken down, but you're the prodigy who never loses. So, here's what we will do. Naruto's eyes returned to their usual blue. I will take your sister. You will return to your home. You tell them she was defeated and then you were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Not a hard story to believe. Naruto smiled dangerously. As long as no one comes sniffing around, then you'll get off easy and I won't get found out. Hinata will be perfectly safe. He leaned in. That's what I like to call an offer you can't refuse. You know why? Because you can't. He sighed. Don't worry about Hinata. I wouldn't kill her, as long as you keep to your side of the deal. You wouldn't? You mean I wouldn't bite into that silky smooth skin, and into her warm flesh? Are you implying that I wouldn't hold her tight, and drink every last drop of her delicious blood till her life fled from her? I think you overestimate my restraint. His voice dropped to a low purr, while one hand touched the bruised skin of her stomach. I'll give you enough power to get away from here, but not enough to heal you. I'm sure that's understandable. With that, Hanabi jerked. Heat was radiating from where his palm pressed against her bare skin. Holy energy, mixed with something else, was flowing into her, healing her injuries quickly. She bit back a whimper as the warm feeling flowed down her limbs, restoring control over her nervous system. Then Naruto pulled away, just as he'd said. He left the majority of her injuries unhealed. You should go now. We don't need this getting any more complicated than it already is. Hanabi's eyebrows drew together in a solid line as her gaze shifted to her sister. Naruto interrupted her thoughts jarringly. You can't beat me to her. I could kill every student in this school and still have the time to spare to stop you. She froze. Leave now. I won't tell you again. His tone was cool, a deep glacial ice now. Hanabi shivered at the similarity to her father. Looking to her older sister again, she wished once for her safety and allowed her wings to unfurl behind her. Her pale gray eyes met Naruto's once more as she shot skyward and then headed east. Naruto, along with Sona and Tsubaki, watched her go. The latter two still somewhat confused about the situation. It seemed as though Naruto used the younger's love of her sister to his advantage, and likewise took advantage of the elder's apparent feelings for him to make it work. But the question was, how did he know to do that? And how did he even know two angels at all? Sona turned her eyes to the blonde just as he turned to walk over to Hinata's unconscious body. He quickly knelt down and gently picked her up, cradling her against his chest. Then he approached them. Sona stepped back slightly as he stopped a few feet from her. You have a lot of explanations to give, Naruto-san. I guess so, but I also have something I want from you in return. About 20 minutes later, Sona sat in the student council room, since cleaned up, with Tsubaki and Saji. He'd woken shortly after they moved. All three devils were looking at him with a range of expressions. Tsubaki was extremely wary, while Saji looked spooked. But then again, nearly getting killed by an undercover angel years younger than you might do that. It probably didn't help that Hanabi's magic still hadn't worn off. Sona, on the other hand, radiated a fierce curiosity now. Her eyes were fixed on his with an intensity that he admired. So, Naruto-san, I've gone against my duties to report anything strange that happens here. In favor of hearing an excellent explanation about recent events. You're free to start any time. Naruto leaned back on the small couch that was off to one side of the room. Hinata was still unconscious, as was the rest of Sona's peerage. He'd only been half lying when he told Hanabi not to overestimate his restraint. As he found out, tasting new blood was almost like a trigger for him. He nearly killed Hinata, when all he'd intended to do was scare Hanabi. Angels didn't have the same survival mechanisms as fallen. And the Hyuga clan was especially fragile even compared to how angels usually were. Their attacks were deadly, but if you could get a good hit in they were toast. Sighing, Naruto glanced around the room. I'll tell you a couple things that are just general important info. Then you can ask which subject you want clarification on. Honestly, I intend to tell you guys everything eventually, but most of the basic facts need an additional explanation on their own. First off, and I'm a bit surprised you didn't notice this, Sona-chan, when you heard my name, but my last name, Uzumaki, is the human name given to the original house of Lucifer. I figured with your reputation for intelligence, and your history as a bookworm that you'd notice. Second, my other name, Namikaze, that's a family closely linked to the house of Vosk. Vosk. Sona and Tsubaki looked at each other before the latter looked back to him. You mean the house of Vosk? The vampire house that is supposed to be a branch family that serves the Valdi house, but could actually destroy them with ease, because they made a pact with the Ouroboros dragon, the infinite dragon god. Naruto blinked, scratching his head. Well, you knew more than I thought you did. I figured you'd know the house, but I doubted you knew any of our history, especially not that bit. He chuckled, but the deal with Orpheus was like 6,000 years ago. The terms of the contract ended before my parents were born. The Voss family is stronger for it, sure, but the branch family has always been stronger. Sona nodded. I've studied what's available on vampire history. At least to us devils. Your race is still scarce as it used to be in the Middle Ages. True enough, but you don't seem half as surprised about the fact that I'm related to Lucifer, the original one that is. Naruto raised his eyebrow. Don't tell me you suspected. No? She paused, but for some reason it doesn't surprise me. The original Lucifer had 5 wives and rumor has it, 13 concubines. Each of them bore multiple children. It's been thousands of years since then. If you think about it, most of the major houses probably have a small amount of Lucifer blood in them. Sona frowned. Why do I get the impression that you are a bit closer than you imply merely using the name? Naruto smirked. You haven't guessed yet. I'm hurt. He sat forward, letting his eyes change to a violent swirling purple as he summoned his devil magic. I'm not just a part of the family, I'm the heir. Whether it was the way he said it, or the ridiculous nature of the statement, Sona didn't seem to realize what he'd said immediately. In fact, it was well over 2 minutes before her brain caught up with her ears, and her pale skin became like paper. You're joking. That would be a no. I am Naruto, son of Kushina Uzumaki, descendant of Lucifer. The thing is that the heirs of Lucifer aren't chosen through direct blood. It's judged by power instead. I'm the strongest of the heirs despite being part vampire and human. Of course most aren't aware I exist. I've lived my entire life in the Lucifer family castle. You might say I decided I was tired of doing what was expected of me. He gestured to her. The complete opposite of you who are performing extra duties for your house's benefit. Naruto smirked. Now, that's out of the way, I can get down to some of the more important business. You probably want to know about why I chose this place. The answer to that is simple. I thought that a town that was owned by devils and had 2 high devil heirs living inside would be easier to maneuver around. Plus I didn't think anyone would have the balls to screw with the little sister of the current new Lucifer. His smirk widened as Sona frowned. But the sister to the notorious Serapho Leviathan. I was also intending on seducing some of you. At his an imaginary light bulb went off in his head. Actually scratch that one. I am still planning on doing that. He put on a pout. I hope you don't tell Rias or her peerage about that part, it would ruin my fun. Naruto sniffed comically, before resuming his previous attitude with a grin. But you guys probably realize my gambit to settle here for a while in a peaceful area has already been shot to hell by circumstances beyond my control. The fallen were one thing I certainly wasn't counting on, although if you'll let me, I do have a solution for that problem. Sona shared a glance with her queen before asking, what do you mean by solution? Are you suggesting that we let you go in and destroy them? That doesn't sound like a good idea. You're right. It isn't. And besides that, you don't know where they are, do you? The fact is that I've already taken one of the fallen, who goes by the name of Yuma Mono in school, for my own. Her real name is Rainer, and she's quite nice. He sighed dreamily. Very tasty too. The 3 devils across from him shifted uneasily, looking between each other and wondering if it was really safe to be near him. Naruto snapped himself out of his momentary daydream. My point is that she can get a hold of her fellow fallen, and through her, I will find out who is viable to join my heir's side. Those that resist I'll dispose of in a quick and silent manner. I might have enough power to level this town with a sneeze, but I'm very discreet when I want to be. So, what do you say, Sona-chan? Well, first, she stated blandly. I think you can drop the chan. We don't know each other well enough for you to address me with such familiarity. Second, I'm not sure I trust you enough to let you handle this. You may have helped me previously, however that doesn't eliminate you from suspicion. I'm hurt, Sona-chan, but I understand that you probably aren't the trusting type. He raised his hands and tucked them behind his head. It doesn't really matter. If you don't want me to handle the fallen for you, I'll simply do it for myself. And you won't get a say in how it's done. You're a bit arrogant, don't you think? Naruto's eyes widened. Arrogant? Me? I think you're mistaken. You see, arrogant bastards are those who talk the talk and then get their asses handed to them the moment they get in a fight. What I have is called confidence, and I have every ounce of raw power and cunning I need to back it up. Don't doubt me, Sona Citri. The room seemed to contract quite suddenly for the devil girl. Naruto's eyes became all she could see, the purple changing to red slits, the pupils seeming to pulse with her own heartbeat. Sona struggled to breathe as she saw herself die in those eyes. Die 1,000 different ways, each harsher and more agonizing than the last. She gazed into the twin poles of eternity so long, that she thought he had cast an illusion over her. And all the while she was falling into a deep abyss in which only endless torture and death remained. Sona dropped to her hands and knees, gasping for breath as Naruto blinked, his eyes bleeding back to purple. Saji was by her instantly, helping her up. She looked back to Naruto. He was sitting there, relaxed as can be. He looked almost bored, and she realized, right there and then, that he was far too strong to force into doing anything. If she told him, commanded him to do anything, and he did it, it would be because he was humoring her. Not because he had any need or inclination to do it. Maybe when she came into the full breadth of her power she might be able to rival him, but that was hundreds if not thousands of years away, and he was this strong now. She was a mere kitten in comparison. What exactly does he want with us here? Someone as powerful as he is, doesn't just do something, because he likes the idea of it. He must have some plan. Sona stood with Saji's help, wishing there was something she could say or do to give her at least a small amount of leverage against him, but she was grasping at straws. What do you want, Naruto-san? What is your real goal? My true desire, huh? He sighed. That's hard to pin down. There are a lot of things I want. Not really much, that I really need. But I suppose if I were to speak plainly, my goal is to have fun. Naruto saw their disbelieving looks and chuckled. Oh, don't be so surprised. I'm an immortal. Unlike you devils who will live for close to an eternity, unless I'm killed, I will live forever. That's one of the perks of being a vampire. But there isn't any point in living so long, if you don't enjoy it. God may have created us, but unlike the humans I'm not so deluded as to think he gave us a purpose. Naruto smiled grimly. There is no meaning to life. It is our choice to decide what we want, and how far we're willing to go to achieve it. I believe there's a biological imperative to mate and have children, but that's only to preserve our race. It isn't a purpose in any way, shape, or form. The pursuit of power isn't a purpose either, as power is only a means to an end. Those who grasp for power above all else will always feel dissatisfied. Since I know better than anyone, no matter how powerful you are, there is always something that can kick your ass. And peace isn't a worthy purpose either, however noble the ideal might be. Everyone, regardless of similarity, is different from one another. There will always be conflicts since that's the nature of life. So, what is left? Enjoy yourself. Take pleasure from the little things, the big things. Anything you can. He glanced at Hinata's still sleeping form. However, you shouldn't destroy another's chances of living a happy life, just to enjoy your own. Sona stared at him for a few moments, not speaking, but digesting what he'd said. It seemed as though she was conflicted about something. He guessed she was unsure of what to ask now. After all, he basically told her that he was living to have a good time. It probably wasn't every day you heard an immortal claim that their purpose in life was to enjoy things to the fullest. Usually it was either the pursuit of power or prestige. And if it wasn't a negative goal, it was something impossible to achieve like true peace. So, fun. That is what you want from life. Nothing else. No change you want to make to the world. Not even some minor one. Well, Naruto rolled his eyes. I told you my main goal in life is to enjoy myself, because if you aren't, then there isn't any point in living. I have no intention of being miserable or unhappy for the rest of eternity, thank you very much. But that doesn't mean I don't have things I want to change. Hell no. There's tons of stuff I think needs rearranged, but I won't put myself in a position where I forfeit my happiness to change some aspect of devil society or whatnot. Naruto's hand flicked out, a small plume of white smoke seeming to come from his hand. A second later it dispersed, leaving a large apple resting on his palm. He curled his fingers slowly and smiled as his claws pierced the fruit. Naruto brought it to his lips and took a bite. One of the things I want to do is remove a certain organization from existence, but before I can do that I need a few things. One of them is allies who I can trust. I came here to this place for a few reasons. The first of them was you, Sona, and Rio's Gremory, of course. Your siblings, Serafol and Serziches, are the arch-enemies of that organization. I was planning on getting your help after the dust had settled from my departure. However, it seems to me that the dust just keeps getting stirred up, so I've decided to move my plans ahead a bit. Which is why you're talking to us right now. Correct? Naruto nodded. Now, seeing how this all started during a break between classes, and it's been longer than 15 minutes. So, it seems to me that I should explain my involvement in your falling problem before we head to lunch. Sona frowned. I have other questions as well. And I have answers to all, but if I don't feel like giving them then you're out of luck. Fair enough. Sona sighed. Tell me about our falling problem then. Rainer sat with Kalwerner at an empty lunch table chatting, both of them nervous. She hadn't seen Naruto or any members of Sona's peerage yet. It made her uneasy, thinking that he must have been pulling the same trick with them as he'd done with her. She didn't think that would work, at least not on Sona or her queen. The Citriere had quite a reputation as being smart as a whip. She jumped slightly as a hot sensation traced around her neck for a brief moment. She looked around quickly, only to jump again as Naruto sat down next to her without making even the slightest sound. He cast a look past her to Kalwerner, who waved back hesitantly. He gave her a broad wink before turning his attention back to his mate. "Ra-chan, you miss me?" She nodded. "Did you Yeah, it's been taken care of. Sona's peerage knows about the both of you now, and to some extent, how you're involved with me. They also know why I'm here, and what a few of my plans are. Not most of them of course, but I haven't had the time to tell you everything either." He shifted closer to her on the table, slipping an arm around her waist and pulling her into a kiss. Slightly surprised, Rainer still didn't hesitate, returning it for long enough to make several of the nearby male students jealous. She noticed their hostile looks and promptly flipped them off. Who were they to think badly of her? If they saw her in her true form, they'd be unconscious from blood loss. She was Naruto's, not theirs. Naruto pulled away a moment later, reluctantly and wishing he could simply bite her. His thirst had returned again, and his throat was dry. He leaned in, whispering in her ear. "Before we get back to class, I'd like a bit more than a kiss." "I would like that." She leaned into him. "So my friend here is on board with us, but there are still the other two, Middled and Donosik, who need to be found. We can get Middled, I'm sure, but Donosik would never even listen to what a devil had to say. He's more than a little unhinged, even though he pretends to be a gentleman." He nodded. "Okay. I'll take care of him. Do you think he'll be at the abandoned church? Or should I go searching the town?" Kalwerner scooted closer so that she didn't risk being overheard by students at other tables. Middle was going to be out on the look for any chance to kill the ahem target, while Donosik held down the fort. He'll almost certainly be there, unless he gets bored and does something stupid. Define stupid. She frowned. Like going out to hunt devils and justifying it by saying he was only looking for strays. He's done it before on other missions. It's why most people who know him consider him to be a major screw-up. Anytime he gets bored he throws caution, and usually the mission, to the wind. Sounds like I need to pay him a visit real soon then. Can't have him getting bored and drawing even more attention, damn. Naruto looked away. I need to get Hinata out of the spotlight. Her kind are way too easy to spot. I'll have to cash in a few favors to hide her. Is Hinata? Rainer and Kalwerner looked puzzled. Ah, of course. I forgot you wouldn't know. Right when both of you were talking, two angels attacked Sona and her peerage outside the main building. I showed up and forced one of them to leave by taking the other hostage. Their names are Hinata and Hanabi, sisters. They're rather special as angels go. You see, there's this little problem where no more angels can be created by God. So to solve the problem, a village was created where a few select angels would live. The angels born after couldn't fall, and therefore could have families. This has prevented the angels from going extinct since the last Great War. Kalwerner's eyes whitened. How do you know about that? Her tone was flat and disbelieving. How could you possibly know about Konoha? Naruto blinked. Wait, don't tell me you know about it too. I'm from that village. She frowned. Or at least the rest of my family is. I wasn't born in the village, so I wasn't granted the blessing of eternal purity. And, what clan were you from? Nar? She sighed. And you didn't tell me how you knew. I'd like to know how a devil vampire prince knows about the best kept secret in heaven. He raised an eyebrow suggestively, ignoring her question. So are you as lazy as the rest of the clan? What's your primary sin? She didn't answer, only giving him her own raised eyebrow, demanding an answer. Okay, so I guess it isn't sloth. Anyway, the reason I know is none of your business. I wouldn't even tell Ra-chan if she wasn't my mate. He caught the look that Kalwerner shot Rainer. And I haven't told her yet, so don't bother playing the friend card. Suffice to say, my father had dealings with the previous leader of the village, and he introduced me to some of the Hyuga clan when I was little. The Hyuga clan. But they're like the strongest clan in the village. A single mid-level Hyuga can take on 6 equivalent level devils in hand-to-hand combat. Kalwerner seemed to stiffen. And, oh shit. He said the angels' names were Hinata and Hanabi. I don't know that second one, but Hinata is the heir to the whole clan. Her voice, which had been slowly rising in volume, was cut off by Rainer pinching her hard under the table. Kalwerner yelped and scooted away, but she still hissed under her breath. How are you going to? Don't worry about Hinata. Naruto said bluntly. I will take care of her. The only issue right now is getting her to a location where she can be found by her family. I already made plans to do that tomorrow, and it will take up most of the day. I'll expect you to keep quiet here in school, and not cause problems, while I'm taking care of business. He glanced at Rainer. Ra-chan will be coming with me. As my new mate, it would be best if we aren't separated for a while. Naruto turned back as they saw Sona entering the cafeteria with Tsubaki. For now, just be aware that Sona and her peerage are pseudo-allies. They will undoubtedly be keeping a close eye on you, especially while I'm gone tomorrow. Rainer nudged him gently. Naruto, where will we be going then, and shouldn't we be taking care of Middleton Donaseek? No? Unfortunately, this takes precedence, although I'll leave some protection behind just in case. As for where we will be going, that's a secret. I'd rather show you. Anyway, as soon as I get back I'll eliminate this Donaseek and, if I need to, help convince Middle to join us. Naruto stopped talking as Sona and Tsubaki sat down with their lunches. Both of them looked between the fallen, their expression unreadable. A tense silence settled over the 5 supernatural beings as the devils stared at the fallen. Eventually it was too much and Calwinner snapped. What? Sona nodded. I thought so. You don't pose a threat. I was simply making sure. Calwinner looked peeved but didn't comment. Sona turned her gaze to Naruto and Rainer, whose arm hand crept around him. Their eyes, both dark violet, met. Rainer. Sona. So Naruto-san is your mate. Rainer smiled at that. Yes, he is my mate now. Do you have a problem with that devil? Not necessarily. I'm only curious about how you feel about it. Naruto-san tells me you're happy with the arrangement, but I have a difficult time believing that a devil and a fallen can have such a relationship. His choosing you as a mate is also something of a personal and public issue. Sona frowned. I'll be blunt. I don't trust your kind. Whether that is because we are natural enemies or I have been raised to feel this way is irrelevant. What matters is that I don't know if I can trust you. Really? Rainer scowled. Let me put it this way. If Naruto takes his throne as he's told me he will, I'll be your queen. I personally don't trust devils all that much either, however Naruto-kun in changing my opinion of your people. My point being that I will choose his side over any other. If you take action against me, I could care less. You already told me you don't like me, but if you do anything to harm Naruto-kun, or cause his plans to stall. She glared holes in Sona with her suddenly hashed gaze. I will take serious offense. Tsubaki snorted. You think you stand a chance against the heir to the Citri house? Naruto chuckled at their exchange, earning a wary look from the 2 devils. He smirked and leaned to the side, kissing Rainer's cheek affectionately. What he said next rocked them back a bit. You should be careful, Sona. I have enough power to destroy this school without so much as moving from this spot or speaking a single incantation. And as long as we're close together, Ra-chan can draw on my power, and I can amplify hers. Of course I haven't taught her how to do any of it yet, but I intend on making her as strong as she can be. You may be able to kill her with ease at the moment. His eyes hardened. However, that won't be the case for long. Naruto felt Rainer shift slightly, her eyes moving from Sona's to his. Her cheeks were a bit pink, and her feelings shifted across their link briefly. He allowed his own to reach Rainer as he leaned in close once more. I hope you don't mind doing some training tomorrow as well. She shook her head quickly as they at last started to eat. Kushina Uzumaki let out a sigh of defeat. In one hand she held a report from her servant that she'd sent out to find her son. It was quite a bit sooner to arrive than she thought, but for good reason. Dear Kushina-sama, I've had some difficulty finding any trace of your son, Naruto-sama, but I did discover a trace of your husband's teleportation magic near Tirei Town in the lands owned by the Astaroth House. However, due to the knowledge that your husband is currently on an important mission elsewhere, I have come to the conclusion that your son is or was in the area. Furthermore, I have it on good authority that the Astaroth heir is dead. For some reason the family is trying to keep it a secret, but their servants do not serve well as mutes. The word on the street says that he was killed by a high-level fallen angel woman who visited him not 4 hours prior to my arrival. In addition to this, it seems that your cousin is not informing you of important events. The heir to the House of Gremory is apparently engaged to the second eldest son from the House of Phoenix, named Riser. In addition to this, I heard a rumor that this is not a desired outcome for the young heirs. I would advise you to attend this marriage ceremony as it might help your relations to Sursich's Lucifer. Lastly, I would offer the suggestion that you send your husband's perverted acquaintance to search for Naruto-sama, as his skill in tracking are second to none. Respectfully, your servant, Yugao. Kushina grimaced as she read the letter. This really was a problem. So her dear cousin thought he could keep her in the dark. How brave of him, but he really should have learned his lesson by now. It was about time she took some matters back into her own hands. She lifted her other hand in which held a second letter, the borders running with golden script. She allowed her eyes to trace over the words again, while a small smile lit the corners of her lips. Kushina-chan. I hope this finds you quickly, as it wasn't easy for me to convince someone to deliver it. I've been working here for about a month now, but made no progress with the old man. He's as stubborn as ever, and hates being interrupted more than you hate perverts. Sigh. However, I did find some rather interesting things here, that I may bring back with me on my next time home. On another note, I've met someone very interesting here. I never would have thought to meet a member of the Nine here. He reminds me so much of our old acquaintance that I nearly embarrassed myself in front of Makuba. Anyway, my messenger is becoming impatient and I must be on my way. Make sure to tell Naruto I love him and try to smuggle him out of the castle. That boy needs a girl before your idiotic cousin tries to arrange another marriage. But love, Minato. Yet another sigh escaped Kushina as she finished reading her husband's letter. I wonder what Minato would say if he knew Naruto had left the castle only days before his letter arrived. He'd probably take the opportunity to show him the sights I always was trying to keep Naruto from seeing. Kushina rubbed her temples and thought, maybe I should go to this wedding and speak to Surziches. It would be a double opportunity. Perhaps I can have this wedding cancelled. I know Naruto hates arranged marriages, but if only there was a way to make it work. Kalwerner looked around the large apartment that Naruto was currently living in with Rainer. It felt strange to be there. Probably because I'm being completely ignored. Kalwerner never really understood the meaning of the saying feeling like a fifth wheel until now. As it was, she was sitting on a long couch with her feet up on a low coffee table, listening to the low moan coming from the bedroom. She grumbled to herself as she sat there. It was crazy how little Naruto and Rainer paid attention to her. It was like, here we are, make yourself at home, there's food in the kitchen, so help yourself. Now if you don't mind we'll be fucking in the other room. See ya. Kalwerner wished that, if she absolutely had to listen to the two of them doing it, she could have at least been allowed to join in. This wasn't going to happen though. When she'd mentioned the fact that devils of the Lucifer line typically had upwards of 3 wives, Rainer had made one thing perfectly clear. While she was perfectly willing to share Naruto with other women, admittedly not happy about it, she would have her alone time with him before she was forced to do so. So put another way, she refused to let her friend have a piece of the devil prince until she'd had her fill a number of times. I guess that's fair, but damn, it's making me horny just sitting here while it happens. Then again, a thought popped into her head. Kalwerner rummaged through the small dimensional pouch she carried with her, swiftly pulling out a little red book. A wicked little grin appeared on her face as she swiftly opened the book to a well-marked page and began reading. One thought crossed her mind as she slipped one hand down under her skirt. Itcha with audio. Ah. Standing in a huge cathedral-like room, a tall blue-eyed woman of intimidating stature stood, looking annoyed. Her long wavy blonde was curled around one finger endlessly as she watched 2 servants. The 2 squat blonde men were busy picking and pulling threads out of a large family tapestry. The massive piece of fabric was nearly 30 feet long and 10 feet high, spanning one section of the western wall. Originally it had depicted her with her husband and their 2 daughters. However, it had been reworked recently, as in the 5 minutes it took her to use the restroom, and now all 4 figures displayed were now shown stark naked, and she'd been depicted wearing expensive lingerie. That little shit has guts. Not only does he put me wearing that, but he has me wearing a cheesy human brand. I'll break his legs if I catch him alone. A small frown forced her eyebrows to meet in a gold V. This was getting to be too much. Every single day, every 10 minutes something went wrong, and it was starting to get on her nerves. Like very on her nerves. If she didn't find something to blast into oblivion she would go crazy. She was still watching the servants unpick the alterations 30 minutes later, when her husband returned from his meeting with their king. Freyja turned to him, her lips twisting into a smile. Did Odin say he could restore your beard, dear? A solemn shake of the head, and a lively twitch of his violently pink beard, told her that it was impossible. Her husband's soft grimace turned into an aggrieved expression she knew well. After all, they were Loki's favorite targets, mainly because they'd already lost the privilege to go after him. Seeing how Loki could come and go from Asgard as he pleased, it was less than easy to catch the little cretin. She was forbidden from leaving after an incident with Azazel, the Fallen's current leader. And her husband was restricted to the usual means for leaving. Loki could be in the underworld before he managed to convince Turtle let them out. That brat is going to pay next time I lay hands on him. He grumbled. I swear it was bad enough with him rearranging the furniture in the house in the middle of the night. But this, permanently coloring my beard pink, and then dipping it into a cup filled with Styx water. Now my beard is indestructible, and even I can't shave it off. I'll have to wait 200 years for it to grow out. He cast his blue eyes downward, sulking. It's alright. I'll hex him with something nasty next time the court dines together. He nodded. That would be excellent. You're the only one who can fool Odin into letting you sit next to him. I just hope he doesn't bring that damned mutt next time. The thing's begging was nearly intolerable. Freyja just sighed, and went back to watching her servants toil. It really was a shame she could do something more permanent to Loki, but he was the god of tricksters. Fooling or pranking him to any great extent was nearly impossible. She pulled a hand through her hair again. If he does too much more this week I'll start getting gray hair. I'm a goddess for Odin's sake. A while later Rainer was lying in Naruto's bed, still breathing hard. She brushed the hair out of her eyes as she rested her head on one arm, watching him. Their second time hadn't lasted nearly as long, but it was still almost beyond belief how amazing he was in bed. Hell, she couldn't remember much of the last 20 minutes, except that she really wanted to do whatever it was, again. She sighed as Naruto pulled out a long stylus and a sheet of parchment. She didn't know what he was doing, but it had something to do with what he had planned tomorrow. Which, she believed, would include a visit to one of the outer mythos. After all, there were few enough places where you could hide in a world where the dominant religion was Christianity and the angels were looking for you. Some of those places were under the control of the major mythos. The Norse gods controlled one such area, as did the Egyptian gods. And then there were the Japanese gods, though their power had waned since the last Great War. Any of these mythos could hide from the devils, angels, or fallen with ease. Such was the reason why they still existed. If they didn't have a few trump cards, they'd have been dismantled or destroyed centuries ago. For instance, the Egyptian gods in particular had it out for the fallen. And again, as she thought about it, so did the Norse. What are you thinking about, Ra-chan? Rainer shrugged and crawled over the bed to lie next to him. Not much. I was wondering where we're going tomorrow, I guess. Well, there's a favor that I'll be calling in tomorrow, and with any luck I can meet an old friend. Anyway, it will allow Hinata to stay hidden until I decide it's time to come out into the open. I'm not sure when I'll do that though, but if the world keeps forcing my hand, it'll be sooner rather than later. She nodded and watched as he cut open his wrist with the tip of the stylus, quickly dipping it in his blood. A thought popped into her head as she watched him there. Naruto-kun, you didn't tell Kalwerner about how you knew those two angels, or about her home village. Would you tell me about it? He turned his head slightly. Sure, it's mostly my dad's fault. Or I suppose I shouldn't call it a fault. It's just that he's the reason I know anything about angels. Sometime before I was born and a long time before he met my mother, he made friends with the old leader of Konoha, which is the pure village. All the angels born within the walls of the village are eternally pure, as they call it. Anyway, my dad actually helped to run the village for a very short time. I don't know a lot about it myself, but there was some sort of catastrophe and he left. So? Rainer pondered with a hand under her chin. Your dad, who was a half-human, half-vampire prince, somehow made friends with the leader of an angel village. How does that work? Naruto smiled as he started to sketch kanji. It's something to do with my dad's human side. On my dad's human side, his family was very, open. They made friends with everyone in their pursuit of knowledge. It didn't matter to them if you were an angel or a devil. Originally, my dad's family was devoted to one of the alternate mythos, but after the different mythos started to really decline, the family cut their ties and started to practice alchemy and human magic. He grinned. My human side is better known than my vampire side in most cases, but that's beside the point. Eventually, my human ancestors decided to hook up with the vampire house of Vosk, which is a side branch from the Valdi family. The Namikaze helped the Vosk make a bargain with the infinite dragon god, and it permanently bound the two families together. You're a prince in 3 ways then. Sort of. My human side isn't really royal unless you count the old status granted by an ancient mythos. But about 2/3 of the Namikaze that are left, not many mind you, are vampire hybrids. My father took it a step further by marrying a pure devil. So, which old mythos was it that your ancestors worshipped? Ah, you'll see tomorrow. He smirked as he finished his writing and licked his wrist clean before blowing the blood dry. Naruto. Hush hush. Naruto leaned back and bit her shoulder. Ow. His eyes turned crimson as he let his stylus and papers fall to the side. He crawled over top of her, pinning her to the bed. Now, I believe I'm done for the night, well, with writing anyways. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the other videos that I have created, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.